to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a cook a roast with me. I don't really follow a set recipe, I kind of have made it up over lockdown. I only started doing roasts in lockdown, so it's a bit of a difference for me. Today I'm going to be doing a gammon joint and I've got all of the sort of ingredients here in front of me.
Here are the ingredients you'll need to make this roast. Gluten-free gravy granules, gluten-free stuffing mix, I usually use half a pack, gluten-free plain flour, a gammon joint, 4 carrots, gluten-free Yorkshire pudding mix, again I usually use half a pack of this, butter, some potatoes, 1 red onion, 1 egg, 2 Cumberland sausages, rosemary, milk, we have semi-skimmed here, vegetable oil, I also used olive oil during this, salt and pepper. And almost forgot goose fat.
So I've already preheated the oven, it's currently preheating at the moment. For this, we have a fan oven, it's 170, and I kind of make everything fit that temperature rather than changing the temperature as I go. So first things first is place the joint on a baking tray and cover loosely with foil. So I've taken the gammon out of the packet, I'm just going to put it in the foil, and then just cover that just like that. I'm putting it in the middle of my baking tray. It's now loosely covered. I'm going to put that in the oven. Even though this pan isn't hot, I'm going to use these just because the oven is very hot. So I'm going to put the timer on for an hour and 15, as that's when we need to take the foil off. And now I'm going to wash my potatoes and cut them. So I've got my potatoes all peeled now. I prefer my potatoes really crispy and small, but my partner prefers his potatoes sort of quite big, like generic roast potatoes. So depending how you like to chop them like that. We prefer both ways, so I do a little bit of both. Okay, so they're all cut up now. Normally I use about 5 sort of big potatoes, but because they were smaller today I used a few less. So then you put them into your saucepan and cover it with water. Just going to add some salt into the potatoes, and then I'm going to wait until they boil and then let them boil for 2 minutes before taking them off the heat. While they're just heating up, I'm going to put some goose fat into my new deep frying dish. About 100 grams, they say, but I just sort of do a couple big chunks. And then in the oven, that will sort of melt and it will sort of go all around the pan. So just get it a bit and put it in right at the bottom. Perfect. So while the potatoes are just going to boil, I'm going to cut up the onions and the carrots and peel them and get them ready. We use about 2 carrots per person and 1 onion. We use it all, but we use a little bit in our onion gravy. Okay, so the potatoes are now boiling. I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit and then put a timer on for 2 minutes before taking them off the heat. Okay, so it's now been 2 minutes. I'm going to turn the potatoes off and just drain them in the sink. Ooh. And then the best thing to do is to just sort of mix them around in here and get them nice and fluffy. Be careful, sometimes they do fall into the sink, which is why it's clean beforehand. And then after that, we're going to get our plain flour and just lightly coat them so they become all crispy on the outside. So I use about 1 teaspoon or 2 teaspoons of flour just to coat them. Adding more where it's needed. So the potatoes I do are inspired from a BBC Good Food recipe for the perfect roast potato or ultimate roast potato. I'll link it down below. And then just coat them in it like so. And then when the timer gets to 45 on the clock, then I'll add them into the pan because then the goose fat is all nice and melted. So for the onion, I do part small bits and part bigger bits, purely because again, me and my boyfriend prefer different things. it all into my heart-shaped Le Creuset bowl, which I got from TK Maxx for a very cheap price compared to how much they usually are. There we go. Then in here I put some olive oil, a little bit. Go. And then I put some rosemary and some salt and pepper. Oh god, that was way too much. Oh well, very rosemary onions today. A bit of salt. And some pepper. And then I mix it all around with a fork, just so it can get all of that flavour. Okay, so now it's 45 minutes on the clock, which means it's time to put the potatoes in. So I'm going to use some clippers just to help me because the oven is very, very hot. And we want to get the potatoes really coated in the goose fat to make sure they're really crispy, just how I like them. It's open, you can see the goose fat has now sort of gone all around. Take it out. And it should hopefully sizzle when you put the potatoes in it. There we go, nice bit of sizzle. And then the aim is to get them all coated. So you can use a spoon for this, you can use the same clippers, just get all of the sides nice and coated, so then in the oven they'll crisp up. And then we're going to be turning these over every 15 minutes until the timer gets to 0. But there you go, they're nice and covered, and make sure they're nice and separate so that the heat can transfer between them. Like this. There we go. Let's put it back in the oven. And voila! Okay, so now the potatoes are done in the oven. I'm going to start making the stuffing and sausage meatballs just to get ahead of time, so I'm not quite as stressed. So first things first, obviously when I fill up the kettle, when we do the carrots as well, I'm going to be using the saucepan that the potatoes were in, just so there's less washing up to do. Okay, so the kettle has now finished, so I'm just going to follow the instructions on this stuffing mix. So this is Tesco's one, which is gluten-free, wheat-free and milk-free. I usually use about half of the contents, so I normally weigh it out, but this is the leftover half from last week. So I'm just going to fill that up. So this one calls for 325 millilitres of boiling water, so about 160 because I'm doing half. So here we go. I use this very small measuring jug just because it's easier. There we go. And I empty the contents into the bowl. Some recipes call for vegetable oil as well, this one doesn't. And I usually put in about, is it a knob of butter is what they say, just because that's what my mum used to do when I watched her doing roasts. Empty that in there, and then put the boiling water in. See, like that, and then just mix it all around so the moisture sort of gets in all of it and there's not any sort of dry crummy parts to it. There we go. Make sure the under bit. And we're just going to leave that to rest for 5 minutes before putting our butter into it. And then I'm going to start on the sausage meat. Pretty simple. I just use the big sort of pork sausages. I'm going to use 2 and then you just sort of squeeze them out, so I'll show you. Sausage meat normally is for Christmas time, but we just absolutely love it here, so why not? And I'll wrap those in cling film. So the best way to do it is not the prettiest, but you just sort of squeeze it out like so. And then either they're in balls or just round it, so like that. And then put it onto your baking tray, and then you'll have sort of little bits left over. And then you just put the skin into the bin. So there you go, you get nice big ones, or you can make them into sort of mini ones. It's up to you. We just prefer the big ones here. Like that. And again with the sausage meat, we'll put this in at about past after we've changed the potatoes. So you've got sort of 4 normal shaped ones and then some medium ones there. Okay, so I've left the stuffing to rest for 5 minutes, and I'm just going to add that bit of butter I spoke about before. So about that much is what I use. Just put that in and then mix it all about in there. Sort of get it all nice. And I'll use the back of my fork to sort of push it into it. Add that bit of moisture to it. Okay, and then I'm going to get my little pots out that I put it in. Again, these are the Le Creuset ones, again from TK Maxx. I'm just going to spin them into them and then push them down. Just get it in there. There you go. 2 just like that, and I'm going to put them onto the tray with the sausage meat and with the onion and put that into the oven. Okay, so it's just got to half an hour. So like I said, I'm going to put in the sausage meat, stuffing and onions, and then I'm going to turn over the potatoes. If you're using foil, use butter underneath the sausage meat. There we go. And bringing out the potatoes. And then, just like we did before, just turning them over so they're all covered. I find for me, the back here gets crispier easier, so I'll move it all around, but it depends on your oven. Okay, so once I've done that, I'm now going to start on the batter mix, just because it's just easier to get it all done first, so you're not stressing out. So I'm going to use half of this Morrison's Freeform Yorkshire Pudding mix. This was really cheap actually, I can't remember the price off the top of my head, but I will put it next to me. Morrison's have a lot of cheap stuff. They've also got the stuffing mix. This was 45p. But yeah, quite a lot. And then in my other one, I'm going to crack an egg and put some milk in it. So how much milk? So according to this, it should be, oh, I've covered it. Well done, Tori. So the milk is 160, so 50, 60, 70, 80 millilitres of semi-skimmed milk. Not just use this little one again. Just see the ones up the side. Does that want to focus? No, not really. Okay. There we go. And just crack an egg in there. Try not to get any shell. And then just using a fork just to go around and mix them together. The most important things with a roast is you end up having a lot of washing up, so try and wash up as you go, otherwise there's going to be a lot to do, especially because after you finish there's even more. Right, so just mixing all of that in. And then on the instructions it says to slowly pour it into your dry mix. So a little bit. And then mixing that one. Getting all of the sides. And that's your batter mix. Done. And that'll be going in right at the end because your oven temperature needs to be really high so that the Yorkshires will rise. So I don't put that in till after all of the food has come out, because if you open the door while cooking Yorkshires, they just won't rise at all. So I just realised I've messed up my timings slightly. So after this has finished, I need to take the foil off of the gammon and put it in again for 15 minutes. So I've been doing everything forgetting about that 15 minutes. So normally I would have put the carrots on at 20 minutes. Currently it is 20 minutes, but I'm going to wait another 10 minutes before putting them on, just so they're not sort of really soft afterwards. It shouldn't be too much of a problem with the meal because it's 170 degrees on the oven at the moment, and usually I do it at about 200 degrees, so hopefully everything should work out okay. We'll see. Okay, so it's just gone to 15 minutes, so I'm going to turn the carrots on, start them off quite high and then bring them down afterwards, and I'm going to turn the potatoes over. There we go, and then just one last time, hopefully, depending on timing. Okay, so it's just got to go into 10 minutes in a second. We're going to put some honey on our gammon, so it's sort of like roasted honey gammon, I guess. There are recipes that call for really exquisite glazes, but we can't be asked, so we're just going to do this. Just open it up a little bit, and you can see it, and then just squeeze the honey on top, just making sure it gets all over. Voila! Okay, so I've just put the honey on the gammon, and now I'm just going to turn over the sausage meat and just sort of move around the onions just so they're not sticking in one position or burning. About 5 minutes now, until we have to take the foil off of the gammon, and that's when I'm going to stick in this tray with oil in it for the Yorkshires. So you want the oil to be really hot when you put it in, otherwise they won't rise as well. I use about a half a teaspoon in each one. Normally the mixture makes about 5 or 6, but I'm going to put oil in 9 of them, just because if you do end up having extra mixture, you need the oil to be hot, and before I've had more mixture and not been able to put it in the right dish. So I'm just going to do vegetable oil. Put this in with the meat. Okay, so the timer is now going off, so I'm just going to turn that off and then take the gammon out of its foil. Gonna pour some of the excess juices into here for the gravy. Just being really careful. It's gonna work. No, that's really hot. If you can get someone to help you with this, it's probably better. Just like that. I won't use all of it, but just better. There we go. And I'm just going to take the gammon off of there. Oh gosh. There you go. And cook it like that for the last 15 minutes. Put it there. I'm just going to turn the roasts, the sausage meat and the onions a bit more, just because they're not quite ready yet, and we're going to put this into the oven to get it to heat up. Okay, so the timer is now up, which means it's time to take the gammon out of the oven. Woo. Take everything out of the oven, nice crispy potatoes. Go. And then I'm going to leave the Yorkshire one in there and turn the heat right up on it. 250. There we go. I'm going to keep it on 250 for about 2 minutes before adding in the Yorkshire mix. And when you're cooking, make sure you stir this just so it doesn't sort of get thick at any point. And then I'm going to plate up and serve everything. Okay, so it's been 2 minutes. I'm just going to take it out. You need to do this quite quickly, just so that the oil stays hot. Okay. Sometimes you hear a little sizzle, sometimes you won't. You kind of want it to sizzle. There you go, you can hear them sizzling now. And there you go, see I've got a bit extra for one, which is a good thing that I did extra oil. And then put those in, normally for about 10 to 15 minutes. There we go. And turn it down to about 240. And then while it's happening, it's perfect time to wash up, lay the table and start to plate up. Also, we'll do the gravy, so we'll heat the kettle up. We've got the juices in there, and then we just use the gluten-free Bisto, 4 teaspoons, and then fill it up with water. We like it quite thick, our gravy, so we don't fill it up to the amount of water that it says on here. I think it's about 380 or 280 millilitres. So we'll do just under that, especially as we've got the juices in there as well. add some of the onions into this. So that's just a teaspoon, and then pour in your boiling water. So let's see this. Pour that on. There we go, and then just mix it all up, and then we've got a lovely gravy boat that my mum bought for us. And we'll pour it into this. For the gammon, make sure you cut off this casing before cutting it, otherwise it's going to be really, really hard to cut through. And I normally use a bread knife just to help me actually get through the gammon joint. Okay, so it's been about 12 minutes. I'm going to take the Yorkshires out because they're starting to look a little bit brown. And once you have taken them out, you can't put it back in again, it won't work. Right, here we go. These are the Yorkshires, they're quite puffy. Even the little one did quite well, as you can see. Then I'll add these to my ready things, and I'll probably drizzle the extra honey on top. So there you go, here is our finished product. We've managed to stay a little bit ahead with the washing up, so there's not too much to do at the end. Thank you for joining me for this video. It turns out that my timings didn't actually mess everything up in the end. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below whether you like this sort of video. I'm going to be trying some new things on this channel, like I said, but thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye!